Our first question asks us to define family and critically examine its universality. When you hear family, what picture immediately comes to mind? A mom, a dad, a couple of kids. Is that picture truly universal?
That's the perfect place to begin. Traditionally, a great starting point for this deep dive is William N. Stevens's definition. He describes family as a group based on marriage, with clear rights and duties for parents, common residence for husband, wife, and children, and a shared economic responsibility between the spouses.
Yeah.
Sounds pretty neat and tidy, doesn't it?
It does on the surface, but what's truly fascinating is how quickly our sources complicate this, suggesting that even these seemingly basic features aren't universal across all human societies. It's just not a one-size-fits-all definition.
Precisely. Structurally, families vary widely. You have the nuclear family, that classic image, right? A couple and their unmarried children. Then there's the extended family, which is any addition to that core nuclear unit, maybe grandparents or aunts and uncles living nearby or with them.
Okay.
And a joint family, which is a type of extended family often involving multiple nuclear families, usually at least 3 generations, all living together according to specific societal rules. So right away, the form of family isn't constant.
So the structure itself varies significantly. But what about the fundamental idea of family? Is that something all cultures share?
Well, this question of universality was a massive focus for anthropologist George Murdock. After studying, 250 societies, he concluded in his 1949 work, Social Structure, that the nuclear family is indeed universal.
Oh, interesting.
He argued it performs 4 essential functions vital for human survival: the permanent gratification of sexual needs, childbirth, economic functions, and the socialization of children.
Right.
He then extended this, reasoning that since extended and joint families contain nuclear families, well, then family itself in some form must be universal.
Murdock's argument sounds, well, incredibly robust. The logic seems tight. Yet, I recall our notes hinting that some anthropologists find this maybe too narrow. What did Kathleen Gough, for instance, find that directly challenged this seemingly ironclad conclusion?
Gough absolutely challenged Murdock's view. She asked, are those essential functions truly performed only by the nuclear family everywhere? And her research provides fascinating counterexamples.
Like what?
Well, for sexual needs and childbirth, she points to things like woman-to-woman marriage in the Newers, ghost marriages among British Columbians, and the Nair Tharavad system.
Wow.
These aren't just minor exceptions, they're fundamental reorganizations of who fulfills which roles, showing diverse ways societies handle these aspects outside of a traditional nuclear couple.
Okay, so that covers sex and childbirth. What about the others?
For economic functions, think about modern welfare states. They've taken over many responsibilities. And communities like the kibbutz in Israel operate on communal economic production, not strictly family-based. And for socialization, in large extended families, it's often grandparents who take the lead, not just the biological parents.
Right.
Plus, you look at the modern West, high divorce rates mean more single-parent households,
Yeah.
where socialization naturally looks quite different.
So, if Gough is right, and maybe only the mother-child unit is truly universal for that primary socialization, that completely reframes how we think about the very idea of a family, doesn't it? It suggests our conventional picture is, well, deeply culturally specific, not some biological imperative.
Exactly. It forces us to question our assumptions.
What do you think defines a family in your community, beyond just blood or marriage? Something to consider. Okay, building on that, let's explore our next concept, household and domestic group. We often use family and household interchangeably, don't we? But are they actually the same thing?
They're certainly related, yeah, but not identical. And this distinction is pretty crucial for understanding how societies organize themselves. As Haviland noted back in 2003, a household refers to a group of people living together who may or may not be related by blood.
Okay.
The key is that they fulfill all the functions of a family, things like providing food, shelter, companionship, that sort of thing.
Can you give us a vivid example, something that might not fit our traditional idea of a family?
Absolutely. Among the Munduruku of the Amazon, for instance, all males over 13 live together in one household.
Really?
Yeah, and females and children under 13 live in another separate household.
Ah.
But these 2 separate households collectively perform all family functions: economic production, child rearing, socialization, even though they aren't structured like a conventional family under one single roof.
That's a striking illustration. It shows how function can sometimes override our typical definitions of structure.
Precisely.
And what about domestic groups? How do they fit into this picture?
Meyer Fortes described domestic groups as essentially householding and housekeeping units. They organize to provide material and cultural resources, maintaining and bringing up their members.
Yeah.
He also outlined 3 fascinating phases in their typical developmental cycle.
Oh, yeah? What are those?
First is the phase of expansion. This kicks off with marriage and grows as children are born. Makes sense. Second, the phase of dispersion. This starts when the eldest child marries and continues until the youngest child marries off. The original unit starts to break apart.
Right.
And third, the phase of replacement. This begins as the parents age and continues until their death, as the children effectively replace them and begin their own phase of expansion.
So it's kind of like a continuous life cycle for the group itself.
Yeah, pretty much. Forte saw it as this natural progression,
So these concepts highlight how different groups organize for daily living. Let's really nail down that core difference between a family and a household again, because it's so easy to mix them up.
Okay, let's clarify. Think of it this way. A family is primarily about kinship.
Kinship, right.
people connected by marriage, blood, or adoption. Members might even be spread across several households, and it's, well, quite difficult to just step out of those family relations.
True.
A household, however, is primarily about residents.
Living together.
Exactly. People who live together under one roof, regardless of their marital or blood ties. Mobility out of a household, say if a roommate moves out, is relatively easy.
Got it.
So, the key takeaway. Family is a kin group, while a household is a residential group.
That distinction is incredibly helpful. It really makes you think about all the diverse living situations we see today. Have you ever lived in a household that wasn't strictly a family in the traditional sense, but maybe still felt like one? Food for thought. All right, let's shift gears and consider the essential work that families do. Our next question is, functions of family. What are the core roles a family plays in society and for its members?
Well, going back to William N. Stevens' definition we mentioned earlier, he highlights marriage, parenthood rights duties, common residence, and shared economic obligations. Anthropologists generally agree that families perform, broadly, two types of functions.
Okay, let's start with those essential ones first.
Yeah.
The ones Murdock argued were critical for survival.
Exactly. Murdock's The Social Structure outlines these as the permanent gratification of sexual needs, childbirth, economic production, and the socialization of children.
Right.
And it's worth noting that many experts believe the socialization of children is perhaps the most crucial of these four. It really lays the foundation for individuals in society.
And beyond those sort of bedrock functions, what are some of the other roles families commonly take on, the non-essential ones?
These are what we call non-essential functions.
Mm.
They include things like taking care of formal education and health of children, religious upbringing, recreation, providing emotional support, and generally fostering a sense of belonging.
Okay.
While important, they might not be universally confined to the immediate family unit in the same way as Murdock's essentials. Other institutions often help out.
So these are the typical roles we associate with family. But we heard Kathleen Gough challenge some of this earlier, right? Even those essential functions aren't always exclusive to the family unit.
That's right. Gough astutely observed that even these so-called essential functions aren't solely performed by the family in all societies or at all times. However, she still recognized that despite all the variations, the family, or at least that mother-child unit, continues to remain the most important unit for primary socialization.
Okay.
That early nurturing and teaching truly is a cornerstone of human society.
That's a powerful statement. Given all these different functions, which do you think is most vital today, especially in our rapidly changing world where so many other institutions play a role in our lives? This next section is a fascinating journey through the sheer variety of family life across the globe. Our notes call it types of family for understanding purposes. It truly highlights how human culture creates so many different kinds of families.
It's incredible, isn't it? We can classify families based on several different criteria. First, structure. We've already touched on these. Nuclear, extended, and joint families. Pretty straightforward. Second, nature of blood relations. A conjugal family is built around a couple related by marriage. Think of a heterosexual pair, maybe with or without children.
Okay.
A consanguineous family is where the couple is actually related by blood, like cross cousins or parallel cousins. This is prominent in some Muslim communities, for example.
Interesting difference.
Then, marriage patterns. Monogamous families are what many of us know. One husband, one wife, no other spouses allowed.
Standard in many places.
Polygamous families involve one individual having more than one spouse. This branches into polyandrous. One woman with many husbands.
Less common, but it exists.
Polygynous. One man with many wives. More common historically and in certain cultures.
Right.
Then there's endogamous families, where individuals marry within their own specific social unit, and exogamous families, where individuals marry outside their own social unit.
Wow, that's a lot of different ways to form a marital bond. What about where these families choose to live or how they trace their family history?
Absolutely critical point. Residence offers fascinating variations. We often think of moving into a new home, right?
Yeah.
But where that home is located relative to family can truly define a family type. For instance, patrilical means the wife moves to the husband's family's place or community. Very common. The opposite is matrilical, where the husband joins his wife's family or community. Less common, but equally valid.
Okay.
Then you have neolocal, which is what many in Western societies might experience. The couple sets up an entirely new independent residence away from both sets of parents.
That sounds familiar.
These three highlight fundamental shifts in a couple's geographical integration. Our notes also mention others like theolocal, uxorilocal, and avunculocal, often tied to specific lineage or inheritance customs for those who want to dig deeper.
Got it. And tracing lineage.
Right. Succession, or how descent ancestry is traced.
Yeah.
A patrilineal family inherits descent through the father's line. Name, property, status often follows the male line.
Common.
A matrilineal family inherits descent through the mother's line.
Oh.
And a bilineal family traces descent through both parental lines. It acknowledges both sides.
So many intricate ways to organize. And finally, how about who ultimately holds the reins of power within the family? Authority.
That brings us to authority. A patriarchal family is where the eldest male member holds absolute or near absolute authority. Think traditional Indian joint families, for example.
Right.
A matriarchal family would mean the eldest female member holds that absolute authority. But it's important to clarify, though our notes stress there are no truly matriarchal societies today in the strict sense.
Oh,
Groups like the Mosuo in China come close, with women heading families and making key economic decisions, but men often still hold political power externally.
okay.
And our notes clarify that even in well-known matrilineal groups like the Khasis or Jaintia in India, the eldest male relative, like the mother's brother, often still serves as the functional head, even if property is held by women. So matrilineal doesn't automatically mean matriarchal authority.
That's a really important distinction.
Yeah, definitely. Finally, an egalitarian family is where authority is, ideally, equally distributed between husband and wife. Both sons and daughters tend to inherit rights and obligations more equally, too.
It's truly incredible to see the sheer variety of human ingenuity in structuring families. Which type of family structure seems most common where you live, and maybe why do you think that is? Another question for you listeners, now for a question that's probably on everyone's mind. Is family structure changing? If so, what are the factors behind this change?
Oh, the answer is a definite yes. Absolutely. Family is deeply intertwined with culture, right?
Hmm.
And since culture is constantly in motion, families are dynamic too. They adapt, they change. Our notes highlight numerous studies from places like Nagpur, Tamil Nadu, Srikhanda in India, which have reported that at least 60% of families are now nuclear.
60%, that's significant.
It is. It clearly suggests a major shift away from traditional joint families in many parts of the world.
So, what's truly driving this global trend towards smaller, more independent family units?
We can point to a couple of really powerful forces, generally grouped into economic and cultural factors.
Okay, let's start with the economic ones.
First, economic factors, primarily industrialization. This grand shift transforms societies from agrarian, farming-based economies
Mm.
into industrial ones, driven by technology and mass production. Industrialization meant factory jobs,
Mm.
which offer young adults economic independence, freeing them from direct dependence on a large joint family structure.
Makes sense.
This, in turn, spurred a massive wave of rural to urban migration, directly contributing to the rise of nuclear families in cities.
And urbanization itself has effects too.
Exactly. Urbanization, which often follows industrialization, brings with it specialized agencies, schools, hospitals, social services that take over many functions previously handled entirely by the family. Informal family controls also often get replaced by more formal legal systems in urban settings.
Okay, so those are the economic drivers. What about the cultural side?
Absolutely crucial. The growing acceptance of democratic institutions and modern values has fostered a new respect for the individual.
Individual.
Yeah, people are increasingly valuing personal freedom, autonomy, individual achievement. The spread of modern education is also critical here. Studies by sociologists like I.P. Desai and Alian Ross suggest that modern education works against the joint family system. How? By increasing occupational mobility, people move for jobs, and promoting individualism. People are educated to seek their own paths, their own careers.
And we can't ignore the immense impact of social movements in reshaping family dynamics, can we?
Precisely. A significant new trend, relatively speaking, is the feminist movement. Women are demanding equality, equal legal rights, economic opportunities, cultural freedom. They're no longer content to be subordinates, but are asserting their right to be equal partners with their husbands and, well, in society generally.
J.P. Singh's 2010 study, you mentioned it earlier, it summarized some key features of the modern family resulting from all these changes. What did he observe?
He highlighted several things, yeah.
Mhm.
Equal rights for men and women, or at least the striving for it.
Yeah.
Decreased control over marriage contracts. Much more individual choice now.
Mm-hmm.
An increased tendency to be filiocentric, meaning child-centered, focusing resources and attention on children. Reduced religious control over family life,
Okay.
economic independence for both sexes,
Hmm.
smaller family sizes generally, and unfortunately also increasing rates of divorce and single-parent households, which he linked to potentially weakened emotional bonds and shifts in socialization processes.
That paints a picture of quite a dramatic shift, especially prominent perhaps in Western societies. But is it a uniform story everywhere? Or are there counter narratives we need to consider?
That's a really important question. While these trends are highly relevant for Western societies, our notes also present a fascinating counter trend. The census 2011 in India, for example, showed that joint families actually increased.
Yeah.
Increased by 26% in urban areas and 2% in rural areas during that period.
Increased. How do sociologists explain that?
Well, sociologists like Janaki Abraham and Rajni Palriwala attribute this to factors like rising land costs, making it more practical to pool resources and live together, and maybe a renewed appreciation for the psychological and social security that a joint family can offer in uncertain economic times.
Interesting. So it's not a simple linear path towards nuclear families everywhere. It sounds like a push and pull between various forces.
Exactly. Yogendra Singh suggests that despite all the changes, the traditional worldview, this sort of ideology of the joint family, still holds significant sway in societies like India. It's a truly complex picture, not a straightforward march towards one single type of family.
Do you see these changes happening around you? Or are there traditional values holding strong in your community, maybe creating a unique blend of old and new? And how do technology and modern jobs impact family life today, especially when you think about balancing tradition and independence? Lots to think about there. That last question naturally leads us into our next one. Discuss the impact of industrialization on family. We touched on it, but let's take a deep dive specifically into this really powerful force.
Right. Industrialization, just to recap, refers to those huge social and economic changes that transform a human group from an agrarian farming society into an industrial one, driven by technology and mass production.
Hmm.
And this shift brings a whole cascade of associated changes for families.
Okay, so what are some of those key changes again, just to crystallize them?
Firstly, employment opportunities.
Yeah.
As we said, industrialization meant factory jobs. This freed young adults from direct economic dependence on the joint family.
Right, the paycheck.
Exactly. And it spurred that rural to urban migration, contributing directly to the rise of nuclear families in cities. Secondly, urbanization followed. This brought specialized agencies, schools, healthcare, etc., that took over some family functions, and it tended to replace informal family controls with more formal, legal ones.
Okay.
Thirdly, cultural changes. The spread of democratic institutions, modern values. This led to that new respect for the individual we discussed.
Individualism again.
Yep. And modern education, as I.P. Desai and Allian Ross found, played a big role by increasing occupational mobility and promoting that individualistic outlook.
And the fourth point.
Finally, feminist movements gained momentum, fueled partly by women's newfound financial and personal freedom possibilities in this new economy, leading to demands for equality and recognition as equal partners.
So what were the overall impacts of these intertwined changes on family structures? J.P. Singh's study.
Right. His 2010 study provides a good summary again of the features often associated with the modern family in industrial societies. Equal rights for men and women, or the push for them, less control over marriage choices, more focus on children, filiocentric, decreased religious control, economic independence for both sexes, smaller families, and those higher rates of divorce in single-parent households.
So industrialization really shakes things up. It seems to have both positives and, well, negatives for traditional family life.
Precisely. It represents a significant impact on family structure and kinship ties. However, once again, we have that interesting countertrend from the Census 2011 in India.
The increase in joint families.
Exactly. And the increase in joint families in both urban industrial areas and rural areas, which, as Janaki Abraham and Rajni Pelrawala suggest, might be due to rising land costs and that renewed appreciation for the psychological and social security a joint family offers.
This suggests a really fascinating, evolving dynamic. It's not just a one-way street.
It really does. It indicates that we might be witnessing, in some places at least, a kind of reverse trend, or maybe a synthesis, a desire to combine the security provided by a traditional family structure with the independence offered by modern life.
How do you think technology and modern jobs impact family life today, especially when we think about balancing that need for tradition and security with the pull of independence? Okay, let's tackle our final question. Discuss the impact of the feminist movements on family. This movement has undeniably reshaped societies, but how specifically has it impacted the structure and maybe the daily life within families?
Right. Feminist movements, broadly speaking, are these sustained efforts to gain equal political, economic, and cultural rights for women, putting them on par with men in contemporary society. Really gaining steam around the mid-20th century, these movements have had several global waves. And the precursors, as we've noted, were things like industrialization and urbanization, which gave women new economic roles and potentially a new sense of independence. Combine that with democratic ideals, better access to education. Women began asserting their demands for equality across all spheres, very much including the family.
It sounds like these movements have had a really complex, multifaceted influence. Can you break down the significant positive impacts first? What are the upsides?
Certainly. On the positive side, as women became more aware of their rights, they gained strength to stand against injustice within sort of traditional patriarchal norms, refusing to be subordinates, demanding to be equal partners. This has slowly but surely broken down some old restrictive norms.
That's huge.
It is. Also, women pursuing more economic opportunities has positively impacted family income, leading to a better standard of living for many families. Catherine R. Allen notes that male family members are now, albeit slowly sometimes, accepting changing gender roles, getting more involved in childcare and children's socialization. That's a big shift.
Well,
And overall, families are seeing better social indicators. In many cases, things like reduced poverty, improved literacy, better health status for women and children, all linked to greater gender equality.
those are significant and clearly empowering changes, benefits for individuals and families alike. But what about the more complex or even perceived negative impacts that have emerged from this massive shift?
Yeah, the new social and financial independence of women, while hugely beneficial in so many ways, has also brought some challenges, or at least new dynamics. It can contribute to ego clashes and maybe more self-centered tendencies within families, as individuals, both men and women, prioritize their own aspirations, sometimes over collective family needs.
Okay.
Sociologist Arlie Russell Hochschild observed that some women are viewing children as a potential restriction on their freedom. This can contribute to the rise of nuclear and even subnuclear families, like single-parent households, and sometimes leads to clashes with older generations regarding expectations around childbirth. There can also be a weakening of traditional kinship bonds as families become more individualistic and perhaps less reliant on extended networks for daily support.
Right.
A clear repercussion, statistically, has been higher rates of divorce and more single-parent households, which of course can sometimes hamper children's socialization and development, although that's a very complex issue with many factors involved.
Understood.
Finally, things like rising incidences of live-in relationships and extramarital affairs can challenge the traditional notion of family unity, though views on these vary widely too.
That really highlights a tension, doesn't it? Between individual freedom and aspiration and traditional family structures or expectations, it seems like a constant dynamic balancing act.
Indeed. And our notes emphasize the importance of distinguishing, between maybe more radical feminists who might advocate for an all-out attack on the opposite sex or traditional structures and more balanced approaches.
Yeah.
The latter seek more rational demands for both sexes to equally share responsibilities, to recognize each other's freedom and aspirations within the family and society. It's framed more about shared progress and mutual respect, not necessarily conflict.
It truly shows that change, even positive and necessary change like striving for equality, often comes with complex consequences that societies and families have to navigate. What do you see as the biggest positive and negative impacts of these movements on families around you today? Something personal to reflect on.
Wow. We've covered a vast amount of ground today. It feels like tracing the intricate roots and all the evolving branches of a giant family tree. Let's quickly recap some of the most compelling insights from our deep dive into the concept of family.
We kicked off by exploring the definition and universality of family. We noted Stevens's traditional view, but quickly saw how Kathleen Gough challenged Murdock's claim of universality, suggesting that perhaps only the mother-child unit and its key role in primary socialization is truly universal across all cultures. A big shift in thinking. Then we really sharpened our understanding by differentiating between a family, a household, and domestic groups. Learning that a household is more about who lives under one roof, that residential aspect.
While a family is rooted more deeply in kinship, blood, marriage, adoption, those connections.
Right. We then unpacked the various functions of family, from Murdoch's essential roles like childcare and economic support to the non-essential ones.
And we confirm that despite all the changes, the family remains absolutely central for that crucial early childhood socialization.
We took that whirlwind tour through the many types of family: nuclear, joint, conjugal, consanguineous, patrilineal, matrilineal, patriarchal, egalitarian, to showcasing the incredible diversity and creativity of human societies in forming their core units.
It's really amazing. We then deeply explored how family structure is changing, driven by those powerful forces like industrialization, urbanization.
Cultural shifts towards individualism, modern education.
Exactly. And the profound impact of feminist movements, while also noting those fascinating countertrends, like in India, where traditional joint family forms are also finding renewed relevance, perhaps for different reasons.
Yeah, that was surprising. Finally, we zeroed in on the nuanced impacts of feminist movements, recognizing both the incredible positive advancements in gender equality, women's economic independence, and overall family well-being.
Alongside the complex challenges, like increased potential for ego clashes, shifts in traditional kinship bonds, and those higher divorce rates in many places.
And throughout all this, the main takeaway seems to be that the story of the family is never simple. It's a living, breathing entity, constantly encapsulating and reflecting the world around it.
Absolutely. It's not static at all.
This deep dive has truly shown us that the concept of family is far from fixed. It's alive, it's dynamic, constantly shaped by culture, economic, social movements, everything.
It really encourages us to think beyond our own personal experiences, doesn't it? And appreciate the incredible diversity and resilience of human connection across the globe. The journey of family is truly one of continuous adaptation and reinvention.
So here's a final thought for you to ponder as we wrap up. In a world where individual freedoms, economic pressures, and technological advancements are constantly reshaping our lives, how might families in the future continue to find that essential balance? That balance between holding on to valuable traditions and evolving to meet new needs for support, connection, and belonging.
Thank you for joining us on this exploration. We hope you feel a little more well-informed and perhaps a lot more curious about the families all around you, including your own.
Until next time, keep digging deeper.